Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. Trade tensions are resurfacing after President Donald Trump warned of higher tariffs on Korean goods, citing delays in South Korea's legislature regarding key trade commitments. The comments have reignited political tension inside South Korea's National Assembly. South Korea's chip makers are riding the AI boom to record highs. Industry leaders SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics posted historic results last year, setting the stage for even stronger growth in 2026. North Korea fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles toward the East Sea. South Korea's military says the launches were detected Tuesday afternoon, with Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo closely monitoring the situation. President Lee Jae-myung is stepping up efforts to attract foreign investment, pledging regulatory reform and a more predictable business environment. Speaking to foreign-invested companies on Wednesday, Lee said South Korea remains undervalued and full of growth potential. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yujin reports.
President Lee Jae-myung on Wednesday cast himself as South Korea's chief pitchman for foreign investment.
또 앞으로도 대한민국이 세계 최고의 투자처가 될 수 있도록 저희가 객관적 환경을 또 조성하겠다는 말씀과 함께 우리의 의지는 충천하다. 대한민국 정부를 믿고 대한민국의 객관적 조건을 믿고 미래를 함께해도 괜찮다. 이 말씀을.
Speaking at a meeting with foreign invested companies, firms in which foreign investors hold an investment of at least 100 million Korean won, or roughly $70,000 and a stake of 10%, President Lee said South Korea's best days in the market have yet to come.
대한민국 시장은 여전히 저평가되어 있고 또 한편으로는 인적 자원이나 물적 기초 이런 것들이 매우 뛰어나기 때문에 앞으로도 성장 발전 가능성 매우 높다라고 저희는 자부심을 갖습니다.
Lee highlighted that foreign investment will remain an essential engine of the domestic economy. Currently, more than 19,000 foreign invested companies operating in South Korea employ around 830,000 people. As of 2024, these firms accounted for almost 12% of total domestic sales and 20% of the country's exports. Promising a more predictable and investor-friendly environment, President Lee pledged to cut red tape, the most common request raised by participants at the meeting.
In R&D, speed is everything. But in South Korea, importing any chemical substance, even a small amount for research and development, requires submitting a verification statement. That takes a great deal of time, and in some cases, it even makes imports impossible.
그래도 그야말로 엄청난 대량의 국가적 위험을 처리할 수 있는 물건의 규제처럼 똑같이 해버리는 거 문제다. 그런 걸 포함해서 지금 지적해 주시는 것처럼 이 규제 부분에 대해서는 저희가 대통령 직속으로 규제 합리화위원회를 지금 만드는 중입니다.
Also at the event, the industry ministry unveiled plans to leverage foreign investment to boost employment for young people and for regional growth. It plans to expand incentives for foreign invested companies investing outside the capital region, including more cash support, additional R&D personnel, and the development of recruitment programs linking such firms with local universities. With President Lee's campaign pledge of the benchmark Kospi hitting 5,000 a reality, and the Kosdaq index also surpassing the 1,000 mark, the real test now is whether Wednesday's support measures, as well as the government's pledge to strengthen communication with foreign invested companies, will actually deliver larger-scale capital inflows. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to reimpose steep tariffs on Korean cars and other products, and their remarks have sent shockwaves through domestic political circles here, reigniting debate over stalled legislation and divisions inside the National Assembly. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins us in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Hae-ryun.
It's good to be here, Sujin.
Right, so let's start with the basics. So what exactly is President Trump accusing the National Assembly of failing to do, and which legislation is at the center of this dispute?
So at the heart of this controversy is a special bill often referred to as the U.S. Investment Bill. It was introduced last November to implement a Korea-U.S. trade agreement under which Washington agreed to lower tariffs in exchange for South Korea committing $350 billion in strategic investment in the United States. The bill is designed to create the legal and institutional framework for that investment, including how funds are raised, managed, and overseen, as well as the establishment of a bilateral strategic investment fund. Without this law, South Korea lacks a clear domestic legal basis to fully execute the commitments outlined in the agreement. While the government argues that it fulfilled its initial obligation by submitting the bill on time, the legislation has yet to clear the National Assembly. U.S. President Trump is now citing that delay as evidence that Seoul is dragging its feet and has warned that tariffs on Korean goods, especially automobiles, could jump back up to 25% from the current 15%.
So while both the ruling and opposition parties agreed that the bill is necessary, the process has been stalled. So where exactly are the lawmakers clashing, and why has this become such a political flashpoint?
So the conflict isn't over whether South Korea should cooperate economically with the United States. It's over constitutional authority and procedure. The ruling Democratic Party maintains that the original agreement with Washington was a non-binding memorandum of understanding, not a formal treaty. So from that standpoint, the government is not legally required to seek National Assembly ratification of the agreement itself. Instead, the Democratic Party argues that passing the special investment law is sufficient to meet Korea's domestic legal requirements while preserving policy flexibility, and that the bill is moving on schedule.
This is proceeding in line with the Assembly's normal schedule, and the government is well aware that this is how the process works.
The opposition People Power Party takes a sharply different view. It argues that an agreement committing hundreds of billions of dollars, much of it tied to public resources, clearly constitutes a treaty under the Constitution and therefore must be approved by the National Assembly before any implementation law moves forward. And from that perspective, the opposition says the government failed to properly engage with lawmakers after the bill was introduced and did not signal any urgency.
Since the bill was introduced, the government has made no requests or demands whatsoever to the Assembly on this matter.
To close off, I want to focus on the National Assembly itself. So what are the next procedural steps, and how soon could this bill realistically move forward?
So the government and the main ruling party have formally aligned on beginning full legislative review in February, following a party government policy meeting held on Tuesday. According to ruling party lawmakers, the administration had originally asked for the bill to be submitted and passed by February, with December and January treated as a customary cooling-off period for legislation. And from their standpoint, that means the bill is now entering its intended review window rather than being delayed. Based on that agreement, the Strategy and Finance Committee is now working with both parties to open full committee sessions in the first and third weeks of February, where the special investment bill will officially be taken up. Once those meetings are held, lawmakers intend to move deliberations forward without further delay, citing concerns that prolonged inaction could invite additional pressure from Washington. At the same time, the opposition is signaling it will scrutinize the process closely, meaning procedural disputes could still affect the pace. So as a result, while the February review is now on the table, how quickly the bill advances will depend on whether lawmakers can narrow those procedural differences once committee deliberations begin.
All right, thank you so much for your report today, Kyung.
Thank you for having me, Sujin.
A top U.S. defense official was installed to reinforce cooperation under the ROK-U.S. alliance. Elbridge Colby, the U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, met with South Korean officials to discuss defense cooperation, including nuclear-powered submarines and wartime operational control. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has the details.
Elbridge Colby, U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, met with South Korean officials on Monday to discuss key issues regarding the ROK-U.S. alliance. According to the Foreign Ministry, Colby had a meeting with Minister Cho Hyun, expressing appreciation for South Korea's commitment as a model ally to playing a leading role in the defense of the Korean Peninsula by strengthening its own defense capabilities. He added that the Department of War will actively play its part to ensure that key agreements reached during the 2 ROK-US summits that took place last year are swiftly implemented. Minister Cho, while agreeing that last year's summits achieved significant results by setting a mutually beneficial and forward-looking direction, underlined that the cooperation on nuclear-powered submarines would enhance South Korea's deterrence capabilities and contribute to the alliance as a whole. Following the meeting with National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak, Colby held talks with Defense Minister An Kyu-baek on the same day. While underlining that South Korea is the first destination of his first overseas trip since taking office in April last year, Colby stressed that he would continue efforts to strengthen defense cooperation with South Korea. Both agreed that South Korea's nuclear-powered submarine program would boost the military's leading role in the defense of the peninsula while serving as an important milestone in elevating the ROK-US alliance, and that the two sides would maintain close coordination. Minister An further stressed the importance of the transfer of wartime operational control to realize a South Korean-led defense posture and called for enhanced cooperation. Meanwhile, during his speech at a forum at the Sejong Institute, Colby said that President Lee Jae-myung's decision to increase defense spending and to assume greater responsibility for the country's conventional defense reflects a clear-eyed and sage understanding of how to address the security environment. Colby is scheduled to depart for Japan on Tuesday after wrapping up a visit to Camp Humphreys, the U.S. military base in Pyeongtaek, on Monday afternoon. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
North Korea has carried out another missile launch, firing multiple short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea just over 3 weeks after its last provocation. And the move is being seen as serving multiple strategic purposes.
North Korea launched multiple short-range ballistic missiles toward the East Sea on Tuesday. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the military detected the launches from an area north of Pyongyang toward the East Sea at around 3:50 p.m. The missiles flew about 350 kilometers, and both the South Korean military and the U.S. are analyzing the specific details. In a text sent to reporters, the military said it is sharing information with the U.S. and Japan, adding that it is closely monitoring the regime's various activities while maintaining a full readiness posture to respond to any further provocations. Japan's defense ministry also confirmed that objects believed to be ballistic missiles have been launched from North Korea at around 4 p.m., and related sources said they have already fallen outside Japan's exclusive economic zone. An expert noted the latest launches come with various purposes behind them.
The move is seen as serving multiple purposes. A final review of the 5-year Defense Development Plan ahead of the 9th Party Congress. A response to the U.S. National Defense Strategy labeling North Korea as an adversary. And an effort to assert its presence amid Undersecretary Colby's recent visit to South Korea.
In response to Pyongyang's missile launches, the National Security Office held a meeting attended by the Defense Minister and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. While assessing the impact on national security and directing necessary measures, the NSO condemned the regime, calling such launches provocative acts that violate UNSC resolutions, and urged North Korea to halt them immediately. North Korea's latest launches marked the first provocative act in 23 days and the second this year. The regime previously fired missiles toward the East Sea on January 4th. At that time, the launches took place on the day President Lee Jae-myung was making a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. It was reportedly a test launch of hypersonic missiles believed to be the Hwasong-11 developed by attaching hypersonic payloads to the short-range KN-23 ballistic missile series, often referred to as North Korea's version of Russia's Iskander. With the regime firing missiles to strengthen its internal unity and to show its presence externally, now eyes are on what major policies will be determined during the upcoming Workers' Party Congress. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea is moving ahead with plans to expand nuclear power generation. The government says it will build 2 large nuclear power plants and 1 small modular reactor under its long-term electricity supply plan. Choi Young-eun reports.
The government announced Monday that it will move forward with a plan under the 11th Basic Plan for long-term electricity supply and demand. Minister of Climate, Energy and Environment Kim Sung-won said the government will build 2 large nuclear power plants, along with one using small modular reactors, as originally outlined in the plan revealed last year.
To address climate change, carbon emissions must be reduced across all sectors. In the power sector, coal-fired generation, which currently accounts for around 30% of the total, must be phased out by 2040.
The 11th Basic Electricity Plan, released in February last year, proposed the construction of 2 2.8 gigawatt nuclear plants by 2037 and 2038, as well as the 0.7 gigawatt SMR plant by 2035. The government later announced it would reconsider the project from scratch through bipartisan discussions. Following 2 rounds of policy forums and public opinion surveys, the ministry said an average of 80% of respondents agreed that nuclear power was necessary, with around 60% supporting the additional construction of power plants. The ministry also plans to expand energy storage systems and pump storage power generation to address the intermittency of renewable energy, while improving the flexibility of nuclear power operations. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power is expected to begin the site selection process for the new plants in the near future. Construction would proceed after a 5 to 6 month site evaluation period, with permits targeted for the early 2030s and completion scheduled for 2037 and 2038. 조영은, Arirang News.
Ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday, the government is stepping up efforts to keep grocery prices in check. This involves an unprecedented supply of holiday items and expanded discount support for food products. Kim Jun-young has more.
The government has unveiled a series of financial support measures aimed at stabilizing livelihoods and easing inflation pressures ahead of the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday in February. The measures were announced on Wednesday by the Ministry of Economy and Finance at a meeting of economy-related ministers. Finance Minister Gu Yun-chul emphasized the need to broaden the recovery in the real economy.
As stock markets rally and consumer sentiment improves, positive signals are building across the economy. The government is committed to extending this momentum into a wider recovery for households.
To help ease household cost pressures, the government plans a record supply of 270,000 tons of key holiday staples. This is about 1.5 times the usual level. The government will also allocate 91 billion won, approximately $63 million, to expand discounts on farm, livestock, and seafood products to up to 50%, alongside cash voucher rebate programs. Tariff-rate quotas will be applied to select imported food items, while on-site checks will be stepped up to curb price hikes during the holiday period. To reduce funding pressures on small businesses and SMEs, the government plans to provide substantial holiday financing while extending existing loan and guarantee maturities by 1 year. Financial support for low-income households will be expanded for 2 months, with key welfare payments made ahead of the holiday. The government also aims to boost spending in tourism during the holiday period. Local voucher programs will be expanded to support spending, alongside travel assistance for SME workers and toll-free highways over the holiday break. Amid soaring consumer prices, attention is on whether the government's stabilization measures will help relieve household expenses during the holiday period. Kim Jun-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's 2 largest chip makers, SK hynix and Samsung Electronics, posted strong results last year driven by surging demand for AI memory chips. And both companies say that momentum is expected to continue this year. Our business correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
The AI boom delivered a historic year for Korean chip makers, setting the stage for an even brighter 2026. SK hynix on Thursday, the current leader in the premium AI memory market, confirmed that its high bandwidth memory revenue more than doubled last year. Moving forward, the company is laser focused on maintaining its dominance, announcing that it is already moving ahead with the next generation of chips. On top of this, the company's supply will continue to be lean, keeping the company in a good position to boost profitability.
We expect low inventory levels to persist throughout the year. With chips selling as soon as they're produced, levels will likely fall further in the second half.
Samsung Electronics also had a massive year, posting its highest ever consolidated revenue in 2025. While its chip division currently trails SK Hynix in profitability, Samsung is aggressively pivoting to close the gap. The tech giant declared 2026 as a year to recapture the top spot, confirming plans to start delivering its mass-produced HBM4 chips in the first quarter as early as next month. Samsung in its conference call said, "We aim to lead the AI era with our product competitiveness in 2026. We will proactively address customer demand by expanding the supply of our HBM4 chips with competitive performance in a timely manner." This comes as both companies post record sales for 2025. SK Hynix posted fourth quarter sales of 32.83 trillion won, or around $23 billion, a 66% jump on year. Operating profit surged to a record 19.17 trillion won. For the full year, revenue hit 97.1 trillion won with an operating profit of 47.2 trillion won. Samsung Electronics reported quarterly sales of 93.84 trillion won, up nearly 24% on year. Operating profit spiked over 200% to 20.07 trillion won. Annual revenue reached a record 333.61 trillion won with a total operating profit of 43.60 trillion won. However, Samsung did also note that its finished product sales could face hurdles in 2026 with the rise in prices following the chip price surge. 김도현, Arirang News.
A centuries-old Korean temple tradition is finding new life on a global streaming platform. Venerable Sunjae, a Buddhist monk featured on Netflix's Culinary Class Wars, says temple food not only transformed her cooking, but also saved her life. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo met her to see how temple food is capturing global attention.
Venerable Sunjae, a Buddhist monk and contestant on the global Netflix hit Culinary Class Wars, says temple food healed the liver disease that had pushed her to the brink of death.
Temple food traditionally excludes ingredients like garlic and focuses on balance to promote long and healthy lives. This wisdom resonates with people overseas, making it appealing to global tastes.
When preparing side dishes, homegrown ingredients that have endured harsh weather and intentionally limited watering are chosen, believing they hold richer nutrients. From fresh fruit to Napa cabbage, zucchini and winter spinach, every ingredient is treated with gratitude and nothing is wasted.
You shouldn't throw away even a single leaf. Someone who doesn't understand the value of agriculture cannot truly be a practitioner.
As much as possible is kept, and even the water to blanch vegetables is reused, believing every part carries life.
People who cook are doctors, and that's why cooking is difficult. They must save not only the human body, but the life of nature as well, because we live only when nature lives.
Scooping out zucchinis with a spoon, a method she says helps braise them more evenly, was another small but meaningful lesson. What's served up are stir-fried walnuts glazed with traditional Korean syrup, tofu braised in soy sauce aged for over 6 decades, white kimchi made from homegrown cabbage, and many more. Now it's time to eat, but with rituals. Beginning with the sound of Sunjae's traditional Korean Buddhist wooden clapper, bowls are cleansed with water, and only as much food as can be eaten should be taken, as leaving leftovers is strictly avoided. The meal can take over an hour as you keep praying to appreciate the food served on the table.
I offer a prayer of gratitude to my ancestors, to everyone whose efforts brought this food to me, and to the lives of nature. A cabbage does not grow on its own. It holds the soil, water, wind, and sunlight within it. Through that gratitude, I reflect inward on all the connections that made my life possible.
말씀하신 것처럼 여러 가지 한식의 어떤 지혜 같은 게 많이 담겨져 있고 그 세계로 뻗어나가는 데 있어서 그럼 스님의 역할은 앞으로 어떤 게 있다고 보십니까?
Though our ancestors didn't use scientific or medical terms and spoke in symbolic ways, that doesn't mean their wisdom should be ignored. Korean food has long been made with the mindset of medicine. I hope this wisdom is preserved, understood, and shared without losing its roots.
And through food, a universal language, Venerable Sunjae emphasizes the importance of living in peace, not only with one another, but with all forms of life, including the earth, water, wind, and sunlight. 박건우, Arirang News.
That brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.